What's good, my friends? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Truly do appreciate you guys making us part of your day each and every day. Those of you on the YouTube stream can see I am wearing my late kick Once Upon a Saturday shirt. Look at this bad boy. It is incredible. It is literally the nicest t-shirt I've ever had. It's got like black stitching. It's got a really artsy design on the back.
Are you vying for a chalice of supremacy?
I'm doing my best. Somebody said to me today, like I sent a picture of this and they said, Mark, have you been working out? And I'm like, bro, no, it's a muscle shirt. I have no muscles. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's kind of the Josh Pate style muscle shirt. It's very stretchy. It's odd, Diesel. It's yellow on the outside and white on the inside. It's got really nice stitching. It feels great. Get yourself one. Pate State material. It's funny, Diesel. The bag comes in the mail. It says Pate State material. Okay. I mean, he's got Josh Pate joins us at 4:20 today. The Once Upon a Saturday tour. Every week he goes on the road, and so naturally we are rocking the Once Upon a Saturday late kick show Josh Pate shirt today. Fantastic to have you guys with us. Absolutely jam-packed are we on a completely loaded Wednesday edition of the show this afternoon. Here's how you guys can take part. You can give us a call at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-FAN-FONE. That's 844-326-3663. The MadWorldAttractions.com text line is there for you at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go on the show. Here is what's coming up on the show today. We've got Kelly Ford in the very, very next segment. We've got some audio of what it's like to work with David Tepper coming up in the 340 segment. Of course, we've got brand spanking new upset pick standings. We've got Josh Pate coming up on the show today. We have got Truth Serum on the show. We've got the Braves playing to get a stranglehold on this series. I told you guys yesterday, the Braves have a 62% chance of winning the series right now. Had they lost the other night, that number would have been 12%. So they went from a massive underdog to the series favorite with the miraculous events of the other night. That was just incredible, insane to see. All right, insane to see. But, my friends, I would like to open with this. We are at the halfway point of the college football season. And Clemson fans, some of them, those who can be objective are fine with me. But those who have a difficult time doing so have been none too pleased with me today for, the horror of posting an accurate graphic that has Clemson halfway through their season in 6th place in the ACC with the 5th best talent in America. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Their placing in the ACC is worse than their overall talent ranking. Can you believe that? I mean, that's really something, right? I mean, that's not a big ask. Hey, if you're ranked 10th in America in talent out of 131 teams, just ranked 9th in the ACC standings. Well, Clemson is top 5 in America in talent, according to the 24/7 total talent composite. All right. And they are 6th place in the ACC. They are behind right now Louisville, Florida State, UNC Duke, and yes, Georgia Tech. Both Georgia Tech and Clemson have played 6 games. Georgia Tech is 2-1 in the ACC. Clemson, as you know, 2-2 in the ACC. Some things, you see, ladies and gentlemen, just do not make sense. But yet, then again, everybody wants to know, well, can Clemson get back into this thing? If Clemson is going to get back into this thing, how are they going to do it? And every time I go in and I look at these numbers, ladies and gentlemen, I'm surprised at the very real possibility that Clemson could, in fact, get back into this thing. All right? Now, I'll give you the example. I last did this a couple of weeks ago, and I'll give you the updated standings right now, the updated projections right now. Florida State is projected to finish with a record of 11.3 wins and 1.5 losses. Well, you're saying, Mark, that's 12.8 games. Yeah, what that's saying is there's about an 80% chance Florida State's going to play in the ACC championship game. That would be a 13th game, okay? So you can cross Florida State off the list because even if that 1.5 becomes 2, they have the tiebreaker over Clemson, okay? So cross Florida State off the list. Let's look next at North Carolina. North Carolina is projected to have a record of 10.4 wins and 2.0 losses. That means there's a 40% chance North Carolina is going to play in the ACC championship game. But that 2.0 is very, very interesting. Why? Because if North Carolina just loses a single game that is not to Clemson, and then Clemson beats them, guess who has the tiebreaker there? Oh, the Clemson Tigers have the tiebreaker there. So, North Carolina is not free and clear from Clemson. There is no tiebreaker advantage that North Carolina has. Would you believe that according to the ESPN Football Power Index, Clemson is still the third best team in the ACC? The Football Power Index says Clemson is actually the 18th best team in America. They say Florida State is 10th, North Carolina is 16th, and Clemson is 18th. They've got Miami 19th. Miami's now projected to lose 3.7 games. So you're not really worried about Miami because you play Miami, and you play Miami next off of a bye week. Not really worried about them. You are concerned with the Duke Blue Devils because the Duke Blue Devils would have to lose 3 games in the ACC. Well, here's the good news. They're projected to lose 4. They're 4-1 right now. Their projected final record is 8.2 wins and 4.0 losses. That means they're probably not going to make the ACC championship game, and they're probably going to have 4 losses. Those are the projections in the regular season. Okay? Now, projections could be inaccurate, right? Like, I know that. You know that. Teams exceed or underperform relative to projections all the time. Okay? But the odds, ladies and gentlemen, are relatively accurate. These odds are relatively accurate. The projections are the projections for a reason. Okay? For example, Florida is supposed to finish with 5.9 wins and 6.1 losses. So 6-6. We'll see if the Gators can exceed that projection. The Gamecocks are expected to finish with a record of 5.8 wins and 6.2 losses. We'll see if the Gamecocks can exceed that projection. To do so, you got to win this weekend, right? Florida against South Carolina. But then, folks, you have the real bugaboo for Clemson, and that is Louisville. And Louisville is the Football Power Index's 21st best team in America. Louisville is projected to have 10.4 wins and 2.1 losses, okay? Which means there's about a 50% chance they're going to play in the ACC championship game. Now, if Louisville was to have 2 losses in the regular season, what would happen then? Because Louisville does not play Clemson. So Louisville is at Pitt this weekend. That's on the CW network. Diesel loves those games. All right. They're at Pitt this weekend. It would be incredibly helpful to Clemson if Louisville stubs its toe on the road.
I hear you can't watch a game on the CW network if you haven't bought at least 3 young adult novels from them.
Then they host Duke, which is a losable game. Then they've got 2 relatively easy ones at home against the Virginia schools. And then they've got at Miami. Okay, so like at Pitt, Duke, at Miami, if 2 of those are losses, and then if Clemson finishes with 2 losses, what happens there? What happens? You both got 2 losses, but they don't play each other. So what is the tiebreaker? And this, my friends, is what we can't answer today. It's what we can't answer today. All right? Here it is. In the case of a 2-team tie, this is straight from the ACC, the second best winning percentage, okay? If there's a 2-team tie for the second best winning percentage in the ACC, The first move is to turn to head-to-head competition, with the winner of that game holding the advantage. Well, Clemson and Louisville don't play. If there was no head-to-head competition, the next determinant is winning percentage against all common opponents. So you look at who you played in common. What is the winning percentage there? We don't yet know that. Then it moves to winning percentage against common opponents with the added caveat of order of finish in the conference. So like your common opponents, and then how did those common opponents finish? So you see, my friends, we can't do the Louisville equation right now. And that is the big bugaboo for Clemson. You're not worried about North Carolina because you play them. You're not worried about Miami because Miami already screwed the pooch and you played them. You're not overly concerned with Duke because of the projection of Duke having 4 losses, which would mean 3 of those coming in the ACC. If Clemson handles business, it could very, very well come down to a tiebreaker with Louisville. And then you're going through an opponent's winning percentage and et cetera, et cetera. And I know you're telling me it's a long shot. I know the odds say that, well, if I'm honest with you, Clemson's one-loss projection is 7.8 wins and 4.2 losses. Okay? So, like, Clemson's projected to be 8-4 this year. They're saying there's 2 more Clemson losses coming. But should Clemson buck the odds and go unbeaten, it could very well come back down to that tie-breaking scenario with Louisville. Every time I do this, every time I look at this, I'm surprised at just how in it Clemson still is. And if you're a Clemson fan, hey, allow that to give you some hope, right? Allow that to give you some hope. The other thing, people want to talk about is what to make of Florida State, because Florida State is, sitting really, really pretty now in the ACC. Okay, like they're free and clear of the rest of the competition, and they're going to be favored in all of the rest of their games. If I said to you guys right now, who is the most likely loss? What opponent offers the most likely loss to Florida State? Is it at home against Syracuse this weekend? Is it at home against Duke? Is it at Wake Forest? No. Is it at Pitt? No. Is it at home against Miami? It's a home game against Miami. They play North Alabama, and they're at Florida. Folks, Florida State's best chance for a loss is at Florida, where the Gators are a pretty decent team, okay? Florida State only has a 23.4% chance of losing that game. They've got a 22% chance of losing to Duke. They've got a 13% chance of losing at Wake Forest. They've got a 14% chance of losing at Pitt, and at home against Miami. The numbers say Miami's got the best chance to beat them, 29.2%. But here's what I want you to think about, all right? If you go conference by conference here, okay? If you think conference by conference here, do you think about the Pac-12? The Pac-12 is going to have an unbeaten, right? Like, we believe the Pac-12 is going to have an unbeaten. We don't know if it's Oregon, Washington, or USC. We don't know. But we believe, that the winner of this week's game, Oregon and Washington, has a great shot because we believe these 2 teams to be better than USC and certainly better than Washington State, Oregon State, and Utah. Other good teams in UCLA also in the Pac-12. So now you've got Florida State and you got a Pac-12 unbeaten. We expect Georgia to be unbeaten in the SEC, right? Softest Power 5 schedule for a defending national champion ever. So now you've got Georgia, you got the Pac-12 unbeaten, and you got Florida State. All right? Then you look at the Big Ten. And I would say to you, who the hell is beating Michigan? Have you seen some of these scores? Minnesota just scored the most points on Michigan all year. You know how many they had? They were the only Michigan opponent to hit double digits this year, 10 points. The last 2 weeks, Michigan has beaten Nebraska and Minnesota, 2 decent Big Ten schools, 87-17. All right? Now think about that. So who is going to knock off Michigan? Then you've got the Big 12. And you just had Oklahoma beat Texas. There's an 83% chance that those teams rematch again in the Big 12 championship game. If Oklahoma wins that game, all right, which is the biggest if of the bunch, right? Because Texas has a viable shot. Could Florida State get left out of this thing? And I know what you're saying. Oh, Mark, there's not going to be 5 unbeatens. Oh, those are what the odds say. I've asked Kelly Ford that question. But we're getting to the point of the schedule now, halfway through, where you're saying to yourself, okay, the Oregon-Washington winner, who's going to beat them? Who's going to beat Michigan? Who's going to beat Georgia? Right? Who's going to win? Oklahoma has about a 90% chance to win every other game they play this year, except for Texas again in the Big 12 championship game, should there be a rematch. Folks, this is going to be good. This is going to be intriguing. This is going to be entertaining. Diesel, if you had 5 Power 5 unbeatens, okay? Let's say your Power 5 unbeatens are Washington, Michigan, Georgia, Oklahoma, and Florida State. Does Florida State not get left out in that scenario? Isn't it wild to think about that?
It is wild to think about it. So you really got to – I think the debate comes down to who has the overall tougher schedule or the more impressive resume. Would it be Oklahoma in a somewhat weak Big 12, or would it be Florida State in a stronger than usual, but it's not the usual suspects, so you may lose a little bit of cachet when you say, oh, Duke was really good this year. Well, they're like, man, but it's Duke. Like, it's still Duke. That's the way they're going to look at it. You know, even though Duke has shown themselves to be a really good football team this year, they'll look at it like Baylor just sounds better than Duke. Let's be real. So Oklahoma may get a little bit of that benefit of the doubt if it comes all the way down to the final few details and the points on which you're splitting hairs. I think you go Oklahoma. You give them the nod. I could very well see why. It takes us back to that year when what was it? Texas and Southern Cal played for the national championship game. A fantastic game, and that was the year that Auburn was undefeated as well, and people thought Auburn should have played for the national championship. I think you'd end up like that, but this is one of those great reasons and great scenarios. It sucks for the team that gets left out. That sort of forces playoff expansion.
Oh, it does. It does. And it's going to be, I'm telling you, the first college football playoff rankings are going to be released Tuesday, October 31st. I have a feeling that we're going to have 5 Power 5 unbeatens when the calendar turns to November. And then when that happens, there's going to be sheer panic among those 5 teams. And you're going to have infighting, Diesel. It's going to be great. It's going to be like everybody saying something about somebody's mama, you know, who's the 5th with the worst schedule. And you're right. It's probably never going to be that way. But Diesel, I'm telling you, if there are 5 unbeatens, the one that I would leave out would be Florida State. And it's not because I went to Florida. It's because against the other competition, I just think the other teams are better. You know, do you realize that when you look at Florida State's schedule, okay, when you look at their schedule, and if I actually thought Florida State was an elite team, it wouldn't matter that the schedule isn't that great. They have played one team that is currently in the top 25. You know who that is? LSU. How tenuous is LSU's spot in the top 25? The last 2 games, they've given up over 80 points. Mississippi and Missouri. Combine those. That's the only opponent Florida State has on its schedule that's in the top 25. Almost lost to Clemson. Not in the top 25. So, if I'm looking at that, Florida State's got to be the one that goes. We talk college football numbers inside the numbers with our guy Kelly Ford of K Ford Ratings. And we do so next, right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ron, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today, as is the case each and every Wednesday at this time. We're thrilled to be joined by our numbers guy. You know him as Kelly Ford. He is with thelines.com, and you can follow him on Twitter at KFordRatings. He joins us right now on the show. Kelly, we opened today by doing a Kelly Ford special, and that was looking at the projections in the ACC to see if there is a way for Clemson to get back into this thing. Then, and the numbers say if Clemson were to run the table, Kelly, I've continued to say that's the most unlikely thing. You know, that's more unlikely than Duke losing 3, Louisville losing 2. The most unlikely thing is Clemson running the table. So if you focus on handling your business, you know, maybe you do end up in a two-way tie with Louisville, and then maybe the tiebreaker breaks your way. But Kelly, I'm going to open today by asking you a long shot scenario here. All right, and that is the 5 unbeaten scenario. Based on what you know, Kelly, if we had Oregon or Washington from the Pac-12, Oklahoma from the Big 12, Michigan from the Big 10, Georgia from the SEC, and Florida State from the ACC, because it's possible for us to have 5 unbeatens, who would Kelly Ford leave out of the college football playoff?
Hey, Mark, give me the 5 one more time. Who are the 5 we're talking about in a hypothetical undefeated?
I'm going to say Washington, Oklahoma, Georgia, Michigan, Florida State.
So with those 5, Mark, if I go back to my hypothetical 12-0 graphic that I posted a couple times, here we go. Let me find it. The team that would be left out based strictly on resume. This is not accounting for your relative scoring margin, which of course I account for in the most deserving ranking. Strictly on resume, the team that the numbers would suggest should be left out would be Georgia. Now I know that won't happen.
Wow.
Because it won't happen because Georgia's the number 1 2-time defending national champ. And again, if we have the relative scoring margin built in, that could change things. So if I'm looking at that, geez, Mark, I don't know. Oklahoma comes out as the number 2 team. The numbers would leave out, but I don't think they'd be left out either, given what they've accomplished so far this season. But we have to keep in mind what's happened, like what this scenario plays out moving forward. So I don't know, Mark. The Florida State, maybe, just because the way that the pollsters view things, the way the committee views things, is things are heavily weighted towards the end of the year. It's a what have you done for me lately type thing. If you lose at the end of the year, you get punished more than if you lose at the beginning of the year. That's the way it's always been. I'm not suggesting that's the way it should be or the way that I would do it. But if you look at Florida State, their biggest wins this year will have been LSU, Clemson, at the beginning of the year. I mean, Miami, who knows how that's going to look. We'll see what happens in Miami season following what happened to them at the end of the game last week against Georgia Tech. I mean, is it Florida? Probably not. I mean, Duke, are they going to be able to continue to stay, quote, ranked, which that's what the committee values? I don't think they should, but they do. So maybe it's Florida State. I don't know, Mark. That's quite the puzzle, though, that you outlined there.
Kelly Ford joining us here on the show right now. Kelly, can you give us the K Ford ratings breakdown? And it's a fascinating matchup, Kelly. I don't think we're seeing great football when my alma mater, Florida, goes to Columbia this weekend. We're seeing. I was looking at the. Sorry, Kelly. I hope you don't feel like I'm cheating on you here, but I was looking at the ESPN Football Power Index today, and those 2 schools are right close to each other in the Football Power Index. I mean, I think there's only a couple of spots between them all. Can you give us the Kelly Ford, the K Ford ratings breakdown on this game? Who you like to win the game? Because it's fascinating, Kelly. This is a must-win for both teams. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. South Carolina potentially faces the wheels coming off. They potentially face a 4-game losing streak with games following at Missouri, at Texas A&M. Florida can't achieve anything it wants to achieve this year with a loss this week and has not performed well on the road. ESPN's Football Power Index says the Gators are 34th in America, South Carolina 36th. These are not mediocre teams relative to the rest of the country, but they are mediocre teams right now in the ACC. So can we get the K Ford ratings breakdown, please, sir?
Yeah, Mark, and absolutely. ESPN FPI is a good metric. I know people like to give it a hard time for various things, but I like that metric. I think it's a good one. And actually, my numbers are pretty much aligned with it here. I have South Carolina number 34 in my power ratings, and I have Florida number 35. So, I mean, I'm right there next to FPI as we view these two teams. South Carolina as a slightly better team overall. This game is in Columbia. So, of course, that is going to give South Carolina the edge. My numbers like the Gamecocks by 2.5 points. If we break it down a little bit further, the best unit in this game by my numbers is the South Carolina offense. I have them number 24. It's exactly where they started the year. But the worst unit in this game is the South Carolina defense, who I have number 69. They started the year number 64. So the model's been pretty dialed in on South Carolina. Florida has been a little bit of a disappointment for me this year with regard to their power rating. It's dropped about 2.5 points from the beginning of the year, 25 to start the year, now number 35. But the offense is 33, the defense is 39, so it's a well-balanced team. This is going to be a close game. 58% win expectancy by my numbers for South Carolina. And you are right, Mark, that this is kind of a leverage game, a tipping point game for both of these teams. You look at the upcoming schedules, my numbers only favor Florida in one remaining game. That's in week 10, home against Arkansas. That's the only game my numbers favor Florida. For South Carolina, it's a little bit better. They're favored in 4 games, but there are 4 games on their upcoming schedule in which the projected spread, either way, plus or minus, is a touchdown or less. So this is one of those games that both teams really need if they want to achieve their goals. I've got South Carolina with just a 9% chance now to reach 8 regular season wins. And for Florida, I've got them with a 28% chance to reach 7 regular season wins. So both these teams need it, as you said.
What are the 4 games that you have South Carolina favored to win?
Currently, my numbers have South Carolina favored in this game right now against Florida. Then they are 16.5-point favorites against Jacksonville State in week 10, 18-point favorites against Vanderbilt in week 11, and currently a 3-point favorite at home in week 12 to Kentucky. So I currently have South Carolina as an underdog by 1 point at Missouri next week, 11 points at A&M the week after that, and 5-point underdogs against Clemson to end the year.
Kelly, how do your ratings project future success? Are you having to pull that in manually, or do you have that like on a year by year basis, or do you have something built into your algorithm that sort of automatically tabulates potential future success?
Do you mean within this current season, Diesel, like for future games this year?
No, going into like next season or the year beyond. Do you look at any of that? Do you project any of that far out in advance?
I don't project anything beyond the 2023 regular season at this point. I mean, I haven't, well, I guess conference championship hypotheticals I do, but nothing beyond the 2023 season am I concerned with right now, Diesel. There's so much to keep me busy in 23. Once we officially close the book on the 23 season in January after the national championship game, I mean, I start right away with the process to make preseason ratings for the 2024 season. But I am never really working more than one season out. And once we're in the season, I'm wholly focused on the season that we're in. So that's been my process. Just too much to do in the season to worry about 24 just yet.
Okay. The reason why I asked, Kelly, is that I adore unsubstantiated conference realignment rumors. You know, people are already saying the top end of the ACC is going to be gone one of these days, and they're throwing out wild combinations of teams against the wall, you know, hoping to get one of them right so they can claim to be Miss Cleo. Apparently the ACC, this is, you know, in big old air quotes, is looking to replace its top end with the likes of Tulsa, South Florida, Memphis, UAB, East Carolina, Tulane. If the ACC needed to add teams based on your numbers, your projections, whether it be this year or going back a year or 2 or 3, of those candidates and other candidates out there, who would the ACC get the most power and the most value out of?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, Diesel. I think, and I even put a graphic out about this. I can't find it at the moment, but I know I have tweeted about this in the past. I'm pausing for a second because I want to. Oh, here we go. So it's the Power 5. Looks like I did this back in August. Power 5 conference comparison is what I did based on what was what the realignment at that time was going to be moving forward. So I kind of have a quote, best of the rest. So if you take out all the teams that are currently Power 5 and or going to become Power 5 here, in the best of the rest by K-Ford Power Ratings over the CFP era, Boise State is the most attractive option from a strictly football perspective. And hey, geography is broken anyway in the ACC and in all conference alignment now. So geography's out the window. Don't worry about it anymore. That's just the way it is. I think Boise State would be the number one. Washington State is the number 2 on that list. Memphis, number 3. James Madison, number 4. Granted, they have a very small sample size since joining the FBS just last year. App State, you'll be happy to hear, Diesel, is on that list as well. Before you get to Air Force, San Diego State, Toledo, Navy, Marshall, Western Kentucky, those are some of the teams that round that out. But right at the top is Boise State, Washington State, Memphis would be the top expansion candidates for me, with James Madison, small sample size, and App State rounding that out.
Kelly Ford joining us. Kelly, I'm not sure if your model does this, but how would you factor in a bye week? This is not a Florida Gators question. Florida has 3 straight opponents now coming off of bye weeks. I hate that because I think it matters. I know the data on South Carolina playing out of its mind. Like when they're off a bye week, the opponent gets their best swing. In terms of, whether your model does this or not, how many points would factor in for a bye week? Like you said to me, the Gamecocks are a 58% chance to beat Florida. I might say they're a 48% chance without the bye week. With the bye week, I pretty much agree with the number that you just gave me.
Wow. Yeah, Mark, I just checked really quickly. That's interesting. South Carolina coming off the bye. To be fair, Florida's getting their bye before they go into Georgia as well. But then, catching Arkansas off the bye as well. Man, that is tough. I do not, as you kind of alluded to, I do not account for that explicitly in the projections. However, I do talk about that, the rest advantage, disadvantage, the scheduling dynamics is what I call it when I'm breaking down a game. So that is absolutely something to be considered here. If you're trying to put points on it, it depends on the opponent. I mean, the worse the opponent, you could argue the more the bye could help them because they have an entire extra week to just scheme for that one game and prepare for that one game. The better the opponent is, the less that bye probably matters from that perspective. I mean, getting healthy, of course, but I don't know. It depends. I think you could probably say it's anywhere. It could be worth a point, maybe a point and a half, depending on the opponent, depending on the location too. Are they coming off a bye and then hosting you, or are they coming off the bye and then coming to you? All of that factors in, but it's not nothing. I'll tell you that. And I'm not accounting for that explicitly in the model.
Kelly, can your numbers give us who has the strongest home field advantage in college football?
Man, Diesel, that's such a good question. It's something that I've played around with. Right now, I'm using a standard home field advantage across the board. That is not ideal. I understand that. There are certain home environments that are worth more. If we really want to get down into the minutia, time of day matters, right? I mean, if you're talking about South Carolina, I don't want to go in there at night, but hey, at noon, maybe that's a sleepy kickoff. I don't know. Or when you get in the Central Time Zone, same thing. Death Valley at LSU. You play there at 11 a.m., that's one thing. You play there at 7 p.m. Central, that's another. So at this point, I don't have that, Diesel. I'm very hopeful that in one of these future improvements I can make to the model, one of these upcoming summers, that's something that can be incorporated. But I mean, you know who the teams are that have the home field advantage, right? I would put South Carolina up there. It's an underrated home field environment, I think, in the SEC. We're talking about in your kind of neck of the woods there. Clemson's going to have a good one. I'm trying to think who else kind of in that area. I mean, Georgia, of course, but Tennessee, all the big teams, they've got the best home field advantages. Right now, I apply a standard home field. That is not best practice. I'm hoping to change that one day.
Kelly Ford, can you give us, Kelly, the 4 teams most likely to make the college football playoff today?
I knew you were going to ask, Mark. I have changed what I've done with updating the website. I'm doing all playoff stuff now on Fridays. So I haven't posted this on the website yet. It'll be up there on Friday, k4ratings.com. But I knew you were going to ask, so I actually have it here ready to go. Oklahoma is my number 1 most likely team to make the playoff. You'll recall they were last week as well. with a 45% chance. They now have a 50% chance to make the playoff following their win against Texas. Maybe not as big of a bump as people would have thought that Oklahoma would have, but it's up to 50%. Georgia at 43%, Florida State at 40%, and Ohio State rounds out the group at 34%. Others in the top 10, Oregon, Michigan, Penn State, Texas, North Carolina, Washington. Louisville's hanging around at number 11, and still Alabama with an 18% chance at number 12. Then there's a pretty big drop to USC at 8%.
And, Kelly, can you give us the most likely conference championship game matchups as of today?
I certainly can. Give me 1 second. I'll scroll back. That one is on the website every single Tuesday. I've got in the ACC, Florida State and Louisville, the two most likely teams. Florida State would be an 8.5-point favorite in that game by my numbers. In the Big 12, it's a rematch of the Red River Shootout we just saw. Oklahoma, 2.5-point favorites over Texas. In the Big 10, as it has been most of the year, Ohio State, 14.5-point favorites over Wisconsin. The Pac-12, I have Oregon as a 3-point favorite over Washington. We're going to get that game this weekend. I can't wait for it. And then in the SEC, Georgia, a 1.5-point favorite over Alabama. Because I know Diesel is a Sun Belt fan with App State there, I'll give you the Sun Belt as well. I currently have Troy as a 3-point favorite. Remember, this would be a home game for Troy against Georgia Southern.
Only a 1.5-point favorite for Georgia over Alabama on a neutral field. That's interesting to me. And you have Oregon as a 3-point favorite over Washington on a neutral field. So what does the model say about Oregon at Washington this weekend?
Yeah, it's the number one game of the week for me, Mark. I can't wait. It's got a watchability score of 9.8 out of 10. It's simply a phenomenal game. I have it as a straight up pick 'em. Last week, the model liked Oklahoma over Texas, and I went with that. Good thing. My gut told me Texas might be the better team there. Good thing I went with the model. I'm getting a similar feeling here, though. I have this as a pick 'em, 52% win expectancy for Oregon. This game is at Washington, though. I don't know. There's just something about it. You talk about good home field advantages. Washington, Husky Stadium's up there with the best of them. It just might be too much. We'll see. Either way, it should be a great game. 52% win expectancy for Oregon in the game that I have as a pick 'em.
How about that? 52% win expectancy. Kelly Ford, great stuff as always, man. You know, when we began this, Kelly, I admittedly, and I haven't shared this with you before, I didn't know if it would translate to great radio content for this reason. I don't think fantasy football translates to great radio content. Why? Because people just call in with a question that only they care about, right? And I didn't know if it would resonate. This content resonates big time, and it's getting more and more enthralling and interesting as we go along. So we thank you so much for what you do, sir, and thank you for joining us.
Absolutely, Mark. I appreciate it every single week with you and Diesel. It's always fun. I'm glad the listeners like it. I hope they continue to. And yeah, it's always fun talking numbers with you guys. So enjoy this week of college football. We got some great games.
Thank you so much. Kelly Ford of TheLions.com. Follow him on Twitter at KFordRatings is where you can get to him. And how will you be feeling about the Atlanta Braves with a loss tonight? That, my friends, is next. And this is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. And we are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Great to have you guys with us here on a hump day episode of the show. All right, my friends, in precisely 10 minutes, your upset picks are going to go live. Okay, 10 minutes from right now, your upset picks will go live for week 7 in college football. Are you ready, my friends? 10 minutes from right now, your picks will be hopping on the show. But tonight, you know, guys, this is another projected nail biter for the Braves. You got Bryce Elder going. That was, there's a bit of controversy there for the Atlanta Braves. Who's going to get the Game 3 start? Snitker goes with Bryce Elder tonight against Aaron Nola for the Philadelphia Phillies. And you look at the GameCast stats for this game, and it couldn't be more even, right? Atlanta's considered the better team, but the home field advantage that Philadelphia has kind of wipes that clean. And it's first pitch is going to be less than an hour and a half from now on TBS. and we'll know, you will have a good feel for the picture of this game by the time the show ends today. How about that? We're here with you while the games are going on. The Gamecast says the Braves are 50.5% chance to win, with the Philadelphia Phillies at 49% chance, 49.5% chance to win. And if you are a Braves fan, this is the game that you want. You want to have the comfort of knowing, okay, we have the benefit, we can wrap up the series. I mean, imagine how much lower your blood pressure will be. Do the Braves care about your health? Imagine how much lower your blood pressure will be in Game 4 should you win tonight, as opposed to having your backs against the wall and facing an elimination game in Philadelphia tomorrow night, right? It's going to be an absolutely wild scene in Philadelphia. How much can the home crowd will the Philadelphia Phillies to victory? What are your keys to the game tonight? Has the offense officially snapped out of this thing? Also tonight, you've got the Arizona Diamondbacks improbably looking to sweep the LA Dodgers. They finished 16 games below the Dodgers in the regular season. I don't know. Are they a better team than the Dodgers? Well, the larger sample size, science tells you always go with a larger sample size for accuracy. So the Dodgers are the better team than Arizona, but Arizona's hot right now. The Dodgers have had 5 days off. How are you after 5 days off? I'm pretty useless after 5 days off. That's what the Dodgers have been, right? The Astros also have the Twins tonight, and they have a chance to wrap the series up with the Twins. That's the feeling you want to have if you're a Braves fan right now, right? Okay, you're an Astros fan. Either you eliminate Minnesota in Minnesota tonight, or you have the fallback option of Game 5. But can we flush these 5-game series? I mean, you just play too long to have the flukiness involved in a 5-game series, determining who wins, who loses, who's eliminated. It doesn't seem right to me. If you want to insist, I mean, at least we got away with the ridiculous wild card game where it's just one game counts for everything. At least we got rid of that, right? But the best of 3 series, I'm not a fan. These best of 5 series, I'm not a fan. Baseball, you play so many games, make them best of 7. Make them best of 7. You do it in the NBA, you play half the games that you do in MLB. Every series is best of 7. Why do you do this really dumb thing? Anyway, I'm going to go Philadelphia Phillies tonight, 4-3 over the Atlanta Braves. I do not predict your blood pressure will be low heading into Game 4 tomorrow night. Sorry, guys. But coming up next, we've got your upset picks of the week. Where are you going to go? As soon as the clock hits 4 p.m., your picks are eligible. This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ron, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides, Mark, Ron, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Rolling on until 7 p.m. today. Wonderful to have you guys with us as we do each and every day at this time. We are joined by our good friend, the host of the Late Kick Show, which can be watched, viewed live Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, or on your own time whenever you'd like via the YouTube channel, the Late Kick channel on YouTube. And he joins us right now on the show at Late Kick Josh on Twitter is where we get to him. You guys might be noticing on our YouTube feed right now, I am rocking the brand new Sterling, beautifully stitched, incredibly comfortable, obviously made from Josh Pate himself, the Once Upon a Saturday shirt. It is the most comfortable shirt I've ever had on. Encourage you to get your own. PateStateMaterial.com. Got a kick out of the fact that the bag that it came in says Pate State material on it. Absolutely outstanding. Josh Pate joins us right now on the show. Always good to catch up with you, pal. So the Once Upon a Saturday tour, of which the shirt that I'm wearing right now is representing, features Oregon and Washington this week, Josh. And when I look at these two teams, and I understand that Oregon has a really sizable talent advantage here. Last 4 recruiting classes have average rank number 10. The last 4 for Washington have been 43rd. If you remove Kalen DeBoer's first year, they're 24th over the last 3. You got the 2 top offenses in America, but Oregon's also 6th defensively, and Washington is 62nd. I feel like I'm leaning Washington. I don't know why, because the more I look at the numbers, Josh, the more Oregon is screaming out to me as a true contender. What are you most looking forward to about this one?
Mark, what if I told you Bo Nix is 0-6 on the road versus top 10 teams? What if I told you he has a 2 touchdown to 10 interception ratio in those games? What if I told you Husky Stadium's just insane, and I say that with the world knowing full well I've never been there? I think what you're saying is right. I feel the same way. Okay, I build all that up to tell you I picked Oregon to win the game too. But when you look at the stat profile, like when you just look at the game on paper, it really does feel like significant edge Oregon. And it's not going to be that way. I just don't feel it's going to be that way. I'll tell you, you don't need to go back too far. Let's just go back a couple of weeks. I felt like there was a pretty sizable talent edge Oregon over Texas Tech as well. But they went down there and needed multiple plus turnovers to get out of there with a win. And it's just what the road does to you in college football. So I think it should be a really, really good one. I'm looking forward to being up there. I've never been there before. And I don't know if it's going to end up being the premier game in the Pac-12 this year because we got so many big ones coming up. For all I know, it will be. For all I know, they'll play again. But this feels like one of those SEC sort of gauntlet round table things that we do down here every year where you're getting round robin style, Bama, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, Auburn. Well, that's kind of how it is in the Pac-12 this year.
Josh, can you power rank for me the most overrated and played out Halloween costumes? Men's, women's, you can list them separately. You can list them together. It's your choice.
I think Napoleon Dynamite significantly played out. I see it every year. And I just ask, is there an expiration date on this trend? I don't even have a problem. Like, I'm willing to grandfather in the classic nurse outfit, Fred Flintstone, the old standbys, non-offensive. Well, depending on how short the nurse's skirt is, non-offensive. We can wear it around the family. But the more modern day, cinematically themed costumes, I don't know. I'm not a costume guy. I wear the same shirt every day anyway, so you're not going to find me at a party to begin with. But I don't know. I guess I'd go Napoleon Dynamite.
Josh, I got to tell you this, man. So I am going to go trick-or-treating with the brilliant bonus son Jackson this year. And I know what I'm going to be, Josh, and I'm going to tell you. I'm going as Coach Prime, okay? I'm going as Coach Prime. I'm going to have the Colorado hoodie. I'm going to have the Blenders sunglasses. I'm going to have the bling. And no matter how many adults I run into, and I hope one is Jay Norvell, I will have both my hoodie on, a hat on, and sunglasses.
Yeah, and you're going to wear the sunglasses at night. Corey Hart would approve, and I'm proud of you for this. I just hope that we do get photographic evidence.
Oh, you will. You most certainly will, my friend. Josh, according to the bylaws of Pate State University, when is it okay to begin discussing the college football playoff?
Well, in normal years, November. This year, I actually broached it last week.
Whoa!
Yeah, no, trust me, it's been a first. It's been a foreign territory for us all. I feel like this year, because you started to realize pretty early on, we may not have an elite team out there, and I still say that cautiously because we just don't get to see Michigan tested at all. But when you started to realize that, and when you started to see teams like Clemson, LSU, Bama, when they started to fall early, I thought it warranted at least a discussion about how wide open the field could be. Now, what you won't ever see me do is projecting my 14 field in October, and here's what's really bad. And my own company's doing it, and I'm not participating in it, doing the whole, here's what the 12-team playoff field would look like if it were instituted this year. I just want to throw up. I mean, I got to look away from my keyboard so as not to ruin it with potential, projectile vomiting every time I see that.
Right.
But I do think that it's totally within bounds, even within the Pate State bylaws, to just look at how wide open it is. And the reason that's important, Mark, is because you got a lot of folks looking at teams with 2 losses right now thinking they're totally eliminated, because history says they are, because we've never had a 2-loss team make the playoff. I think we'll have a 2-loss team in the playoffs somehow, some way this year. And even if we don't have one, no one could predict that right now. So I just don't want to write teams off too early.
Josh, what statistic about this season thus far baffles you and has you scratching your smoothly shaved dome?
Oh, man. I think that – so there's a weird one. It's a stat about scheduling. When I think of the Big 12, I think of a bunch of teams in Texas and a few scattered outside of Texas. That's how I picture the map in my head. And Oklahoma State somehow plays one team from the state of Texas this entire year, and it's Houston. And I don't know how in the world they're playing a conference schedule and avoiding Texas, TCU, Texas Tech, and Baylor, but they figured out a way to do it. And that stat has stuck with me ever since we did previews in the spring and summer, and it sticks with me now. And they took down Kansas State Friday night, Ramen Noodle Express special there, by the way.
Yeah.
And I am very interested in their team and a couple others out there that were kind of left for dead early in the season. And all of a sudden there's a little faint heartbeat on the monitor there. Beep, 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 beep. Because they were flatlining for a while. And it goes back to that theme of let's not write teams off too early. They may be a long shot, but I'm not quite writing the obituary yet.
The host of the Late Kick Show, Josh Pate, joining us here on Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, the fan upstate. We had some fun with this one on the show, Josh. The teams that are most humiliated by never having appeared in the college football playoff. Which blue blood, which proud program are you most surprised? Now, we started putting together the standard list, Josh, and you've got USC and Texas and Florida, Miami, Tennessee, Penn State. But as you think about it and you think about, man, that's really hurt this program from a reputation standpoint, who first comes to mind to you?
Texas A&M, because the other ones have been there. A&M hadn't. I mean, the other ones have been there in a previous era. Let me put it that way. Texas A&M's just never been there, and there's no reason for them not to have. And unlike USC or Texas, you still got people out there who could look a recruit in the eye and say, you can't get to the playoff. You cannot win a title at A&M. Now, I think that is inaccurate, but if their evidence is, well, if it was possible, they would have already done it. I mean, I don't think that's necessarily founded in the strongest of logic, but I can't push back on it because they haven't won one. And you got a 6th-year head coach out there. And I did a segment about this last night. We did the mood tracker update on Late Kick, and we did Texas A&M's fan base mood tracker update. And we characterized their mood as Jimbo Limbo, because you have got to think about the plight of these people. They don't have anything else to give. This is not a situation where they're starved for resources. And if it's like Mark Stoops, if only we could get deeper NIL coffers, maybe we could compete. If you're an A&M fan, you pack that place every Saturday. You give, both financially, emotionally, fanatically. Everything you could ever need out there is in place. For people who are listening in the upstate who have never been to Texas A&M, it is palatial. Everything there is incredible. The stadium is immaculate. It may be pound for pound the most underrated venue in college athletics, because it should be viewed as premier, and yet no one even thinks of it when they talk about premier venues, because really to be a premier venue, you have to have high-level games played there consistently where the world's eyes are on it, and A&M hasn't attracted that because they haven't been good enough. And I think it's a crime, just for those folks out there, it's a crime that they hadn't been able to take at least one bite from that apple, because they should be there every year. They should be in that contenders circle every year.
Josh, now we know that you are a lover of hopping trains. It's inadvisable to the audience, but hey, you do you. How tempted are you to attempt this second love of your life behind college football while you're out on your weekly excursions?
Sometimes I think I'm wiretapped because I had a conversation about this thing no more than an hour ago. So where I live in Nashville, this is CSX country. And you guys have CSX in Norfolk Southern up and down the Eastern Seaboard. Out west, it's more Union Pacific BNSF country. And I mean, there's a Transcon line that runs up into Seattle. And there's also obviously corridors that run from Seattle down to LA. And you don't need to look too far on YouTube before you find people who have not only made those hops illegally, of course, strongly advise against it, as you said. Not only have they made those hops, they've documented it. And you could get lost. You could get sucked down hours-long rabbit holes of watching people document freight hopping out in the West. And it's some of the most beautiful scenery. The one thing I love about hopping freight trains, off the record, of course, is you get to see things that otherwise you would never see because those rails split parts of the country where the roads don't go. So people would otherwise never be back there. And man, there's some terrain in certain parts of this country that is just so beautiful. You have to commit a slight felony to see it in this case, but it's beautiful. So I have thought about it. I have not done it. I think for reasons that are pretty obvious, but never say never, I guess.
Josh, have you ever been contacted by any employee of CSX, Union Pacific, all the big carriers, offering you a golden ticket to do your thing on their trains?
Yes, I have. Both of those companies, actually. Yes, I have. And I have found that you have both engineers and conductors as well as dispatchers at one company who watch the show and they've heard me talk about it and they've reached out privately. And they have, in two cases, they have let me know they run the route that I frequently hop. And so it's been some really interesting behind the scenes conversation.
That's incredible. Of course, we're asking all of this for a friend, right? That's how we're playing this. Asking for a friend. We admit nothing here on the show. Josh, one of the statements that you've said on with us that has stuck with me, it was either a year or two ago. You said Kentucky has reached its ceiling under Mark Stoops. And now I was watching a clip today, Bud Elliott saying that. And if Mark Stoops ever leaves, they're going to take a major step backward. And, we poke fun at their non-conference schedule every single year, but he had those bonuses written into his contract to get to 7 wins. I'm curious, Josh, though, about why we're hearing all of these statements now. The Dino Babers, our depth is in the transfer portal. The Mark Stoops, you want to beat Georgia? Pay us like Georgia. Is it just, Josh, that the frustrations with the inability to compete are reaching a boiling point?
Yeah, so it's multi-layered. So let me go for a minute or two on this. I think what you have is you got guys like Babers at Syracuse or Stoops at Kentucky. They're perfectly comfortable with where their programs fit in the natural order of things. They'd love to compete for a title, but they're realistic. They're realistic about what Kentucky is in football. And if everybody else was realistic about it, that'd be okay. What happens sometimes is they'll go lose to a superior program like Georgia, and you'll hear some chirping. And it used to be that they'd keep their mouth shut on it. But now there's this NIL mechanism. There's this transfer portal mechanism, and it's kind of a de facto way to deflect blame or deflect the onus over onto the fan base. And it used to just be, well, we got to lick our wounds and move on. And now it's, well, you want to complain? You want to beat them? Give us more money so we can go get players like them. Now, when Stoops said that, I didn't get worked up about it. A lot of other people did. I listened to it, but I also watched it. He had the posture of a third-grade bus driver. Like he was completely leaned back. He was nonchalant about it. I think he was kind of tongue-in-cheek. And I equated it on our show last night to a kid like in the 70s or 80s telling his dad, I want to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. And the dad says, oh, you do? Okay. Well, you need to go lift for 4 hours a day for 5 years and eat 6,000 calories a day and don't eat any sweets, don't eat anything you actually want to do and sacrifice your social life totally. Then maybe you'll look like Arnold. He doesn't expect the kid to do that. He's actually telling the kid that. So the kid goes, oh man, never mind. Forget that. I think Mark Stoops said what he said similarly. He doesn't expect Kentucky fans to pony up the kind of dough they'd need to compete with Georgia. It was almost as if he said it to get that response out of the fan base so he could go, yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, be happy with 8 wins or 9 wins a year, maybe 10 wins once every half decade or so.
Incredible. All right, Josh, you are on the top half of our upset pick standings now with 11 points after your brother. You were like butter. You were on a roll last week with a lot of what you said, including, forecasting that Notre Dame would not be able to get up 3 weeks in a row. Where are you going this week? You're sitting there with 11 points right now, sir.
Mark, how wide is the gap between where I am and the top of the leaderboard?
20 points.
Oh, okay.
But you don't need it all right now. You don't need to be doing what modern baseball has done, Josh. You don't need to be swinging for the fences here.
That's fair. Have you gone on record with your pick? Because I always want to know where you go.
Josh, you don't want to know where I am. Among all those who have scored, I'm in last place.
Are you thinking chomp this week?
I'm feeling chomp this week. I am a little bit. Why are you?
Well, no, I'm not at all. No, I wouldn't touch it with a 30-foot pole.
Come on.
Here's two warnings. Warning number one, they're on the road. That's all you need to know about Florida. Number two, Mark, it's Cocktober. You don't bet against South Carolina in Cocktober. Don't you know that?
I've seen you, and they're eating that up when you say it, Josh. That home field advantage is something else, man. Really, really something else. No, I'm not feeling Florida, Josh. I am looking at Wyoming Air Force, Memphis Tulane, and USC Notre Dame.
Okay, I got one out of nowhere for you. So my pick last week was Louisville outright, right? And they beat Notre Dame. Okay, this week I'm taking Pitt +8 over Louisville. I think it's a huge letdown spot for them. So I'm taking Pitt. The Phil Dracovic experiment is over up there. Rest in peace to Phil Dracovic, to tight end. And whoever they start at quarterback, I love betting backup quarterbacks in college. Give me Pitt. Give me +8. I think they went outright.
There you go. Josh Pate visiting Seattle for the first time. I'm told one of the most picturesque scenes. We can't wait to see the Josh Pate video. Have safe travel, sir. Thanks so much.
Appreciate it, Mark.
All right, take care. Josh Pate of the Late Kick Show joining us here on the show. I like that one. That one did not make my top 3. I didn't have the balls, Diesel. Didn't have the balls, but I looked at it because Pitt is like 1-3, 1-4. Louisville's unbeaten. Perfect spot for a letdown game. That's absolutely right. But when we come back, I will give you my upset pick of the week. Where are we going? What's it going to be? That is next. Right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. Offsides, Mark, Ron, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. What's good, my friends? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ron, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. You guys have a lot of choices out there. I am wearing if you're on the YouTube page, I am wearing right now my From Josh Pate Any Given Saturday tour short. Great time with Josh Pate as always today. And we appreciate you guys being with us, man. Thank you so very, 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 very much. Here's how you can be a part of the show. You can give us a ring at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-326-3663. And you can hit us on the madworldattractions.com text line at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go on the show. It is time, my friends, for that jam. Oh, by the way, Jeff R., you were asking about your upset pick standings. You picked Duke against Clemson. You got 13 points. How come you have so few? We have no picks for you for weeks 2 and week 6. And therefore, you get 2 points off for those weeks, right? If you just get a wrong pick, it's -1. If you made no pick, you get a -2. If you feel this is an error, send us screenshots of your picks, and we will make the necessary corrections, okay? But we are jam-packed. We've got it absolutely locked and loaded. The top 5 and 5, my friends, is the top 5 biggest sports stories of the day, the top 5 topics we're discussing. Ladies and gentlemen of the Upstates, Offsiders, the top 5 at 5 starts right now.
And now, the top 5 at 5.
And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hit it.
This one's for me because I fired the sound effect early.
Just get a grip, would you?
5,
All right, Braves, Philadelphia Phillies. Could this one be any closer? The numbers on this game. Atlanta has a 50.5% chance to win. Philadelphia, 49.5%. Brian Snitker going with Bryce Elder. Somewhat controversial choice for your Game 3 starter going up against Aaron Nola from Philadelphia. My score prediction, I'm going Phillies 4-3 over the Atlanta Braves. Think about the difference in your overall stress level, right? If the Braves win tonight versus if they lose. They lose tonight, dear God, it was our best season ever. We're facing defeat. We got to win on the road in Philadelphia. You win tonight, whatever happens in Game 4 happens. We've got Game 5 back in Atlanta. I mean, think about the swing that is evident tonight. Now, if you were down 0-2, it would be mission impossible. Good thing is you don't have to deal with that, right? But who is going to be the hero tonight for Atlanta? How much is the home field advantage going to be at play? It's essentially, folks, the battle for the East Coast, right? There is that dividing line between where the Braves fandom ends, probably South Virginia, and where the Philadelphia fandom begins, much of the northeastern portion of the United States. What are your score predictions tonight? Braves, Phillies. I'm going 4-3 Philadelphia. Next up.
4,
You know, folks, every couple of weeks I look at this and I expect to see data that tells me that Clemson is out of it in the ACC. And every couple of weeks I'm surprised at just how in it Clemson still is. Here's what I mean by that, okay? If you look at the projected number of losses at this point in the season for the other contenders in the ACC, here's what you've got. Florida State is still projected to lose a game and a half this year. Now, one of those might be in the ACC championship game because they're projected to be there. So let's not worry about Florida State. They're essentially in the ACC championship game. But what about North Carolina? North Carolina is projected to have 2 losses. If one of those comes to Clemson, Clemson holds the tiebreaker over North Carolina if both finish with 2 defeats. Clemson is still regarded from an analytics standpoint as being the 3rd best team in the ACC. Florida State is 10th, UNC is 16th, Clemson is 18th. Clemson next week has at number 19, Miami. But Miami's now projected to lose 3.7 games. Maybe one of those is to Clemson. Then you've got Duke, the number 25 team in America, according to ESPN's Football Power Index. They're now projected to lose 4 games. They've already lost 1, which would mean 3 would be coming in the ACC. That clears Duke from a Clemson worry, all of which takes you back to Louisville. Louisville is projected to have 10.4 wins and 2.1 losses. And this is the big bugaboo for Clemson, okay? If Josh Pate is right, and if Louisville falls on the road at Pitt, the letdown game this weekend, boy, does that help Clemson a ton. If you are a Clemson fan, you are a huge Pitt fan this weekend, right? If Clemson and Louisville both finish with 2 losses, that opens up a massive tiebreaker scenario by which the first tiebreaker is head-to-head. Clemson and Louisville don't play head-to-head. If there's no head-to-head competition, the next determinant is winning percentage against all common opponents, okay? Winning percentage against all common opponents. So you guys played these 4 teams. What was your winning percentage against those teams, right? If you have to go to tier number 3, it's winning percentage against common opponents with the added caveat of the order of finish in the conference for those common opponents. So you see, my friends, you're rooting for Louisville to lose. The most difficult thing Clemson has to do is simply run the table, right? They don't control their own destiny, but if you let the chips fall where they may, you see that, unbelievably, Clemson is not dead yet in the ACC race. Next up,
3,
at number 3, on the show today. You're looking at this and you're saying to yourself, there could very well be 5 unbeaten Power 5 conference champions this year. And I know what the odds say and I know what the analytics say, but I'm going to ask you this question. Who's beating Florida State right now? Anybody? Bueller? Fry? Who's beating them? Who's beating Michigan right now in the Big Ten? Have you seen what they're doing to folks? They've outscored Minnesota and Nebraska, 2 decent Big Ten teams, 87-17 the last 2 weeks. 87-17. Beating them by an average of 35 points. Florida State, no losses. Michigan, no losses. Georgia in the SEC, very likely no losses. Can't you see the best of the Pac-12 also finishing unbeaten? Whether it's Oregon or Washington or USC. And then you got Oklahoma, who has a 90% chance at least to win its remaining regular season games and then likely gets a rematch against Texas in the conference championship game, in the Big 12 conference championship game. So if that happens, who's left out? Diesel and I both say Florida State, and Kelly Ford joined us earlier today, and he said he believes the team left out, if there were 5 Power 5 unbeatens, would be Florida State. How about that? What do you think? If there were 5 unbeaten teams remaining, who gets left out for you? Next up.
2.
There are very few things more entertaining than fans who have completely lost their minds. Okay? We encounter that every so often on this show. You know, we have fans of this show that lose their minds for one reason or another. We don't know why, but it is entertaining. Okay? In Boston radio, Patriots fans have had it up to here, channeling my inner Gwen Stefani. So, Diesel, set the table for us here. What do we got? What do we got? The Patriots call.
Oh, so Bill Belichick is losing the favor of Patriots fans rapidly. And this is audio from a local radio show in Boston. Don't know what radio show it was, but I think this might be Crazy Ralph's brother here on the first call.
The past few years has been terrible without Brady. Belichick's record is 26-29 now without Brady. This team blows. Mac has a noodle arm. The offensive line blows. No wide receivers around them. Mike Gesicki blows. It's like Belichick's stuck in his old ways, and the game is catching up on him. And maybe it's time for him to either retire or do something. This is pathetic. This guy drives me crazy.
Yeah, so that's caller number 1, Mark.
Okay, Diesel, scale of 1 to 10. That was a 7.5 for me.
Yeah.
On the anger scale.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a solid 8 for me. Let's listen to caller number 2.
Bill Belichick is a bigger fraud than Lance Armstrong. Without steroids, Lance Armstrong is nothing. Without cheating and Tom Brady, Bill Belichick is nothing.
That's caller number 2.
Oh, my gosh. A bigger fraud than Lance Armstrong.
Yep.
Wow.
Anger scale, I'm going to give that one about a 6. Not super angry, but, maybe it's just seething under the surface.
But, Diesel, that's the guy that you got to worry about. Like, he's done with you. He is done with you, that dude.
And here is caller number 3.
I really don't think Belichick has ever been a good coach. All he is a good defensive coordinator. And honestly, I hope next year that he goes to another team so I can root for him to fail and watch him fail like the human garbage piece of crap that he is. I am so tired of this guy having to watch him ruin this team year in and year out. And if he's on the team next year, I'm just not going to watch. I'll just be a fan of like the Chiefs.
Oh, no, you're not going to watch. Oh, no. Diesel, you and I have the exact same reaction when people say, I'm not going to listen to you ever again. We're like, we'll see you tomorrow.
What's great is that the radio host said, liar, right after that. He said, he'll be back. That's the thing, Mark. Every time we get somebody who's pissed off, upset, who says they're never going to listen to the show again, like I start a little internal timer in my head. I was like, I give it 2 weeks. I give it 2 weeks. You'll be back. And it happens every single time.
Yeah,
every single time. You guys love getting pissed off. You love being angry. There's a whole genre of YouTube videos called RageTube, where it's just people being angry about things, whatever subject matter it may be. Rage tubers make so much more money and get so many more views than the positive stuff, because that's what you guys want. That's what you're entertained by.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, like every once in a while, Diesel and I will see like a texter say that he's never listening to us again, and Diesel and I will make a mental note of the phone number that came from.
See you soon.
It's on average the day after, like they take one day off and then they're back texting again. I thought it was we're never gonna hear from you again. So what is it? Which is it? That's hilarious. Fan is short for fanatic, Diesel. Look, but those dudes, man, Belichick is a really good coach, and the game has passed him by. Both of those things can possibly be true. He needs an Eric Bieniemy to run his offense. He doesn't have that. So it looks archaic, it looks old, it looks awful. Mac Jones, swing and a miss there. What number are we on, Diesel? Is this number one?
This is and finally.
And finally,
one.
At number one today, we have got for you, my friends, the updated upset pick standings. In first place with 31 points, we've got a tie. Brandon and Kyle D. Joe D is in third with 24.5. Pat McAfee himself is in fourth with 24. Dan B is not only putting the standings together, he's also doing a hell of a job. He's got 23.5. The Leprechaun of Lyman, Hilly-hoo, is at sixth with 22.5. Delano, the truck driver, is in seventh with 21. Justin L. It's not taking too many L's. He's got 18 points. And then tied for ninth, we've got Stanford Steve, who's replaced the Bear on College Game Day. He's got 17.5. And our good friend Sherb also has 17.5 points. If you're wondering where you stand, I will be posting the standings on our Facebook and Twitter pages later this evening. All you got to do is go to the Fan Upstate on Facebook or the Fan Upstate on Twitter to check it out. And proving that we're just gluttons for punishment, yours truly, who has 0.5 points, and Diesel, who has 0 points, are both picking the same game so we can wallow in our self-pity forever.
Technically, I'm perfect on the season.
We are going to sit here in our swath of suck because we both picked Memphis getting 4.5 points over Tulane.
Dan B said it's not a bad pick. He just says it doesn't hold enough value for him. Well, Dan B, my strategy has always been try to pick up 4, 5, 6, 7 points a week. Because usually when you get up to 13, 14, 15 point spreads, those are long shots. It does happen. But you're then waiting to hit 3 or 4 of those over the course of a season to be right. My strategy has always been pick the 5, 6, 7 point spreads and have it add up.
And how's that working for you?
Not too good. But it worked out for me great 2 years ago.
Okay.
Maybe the game has passed me by, like it's passed Bill Belichick by. I'm not going to lie. You caught me napping on that.
Yeah, I feel like Diesel, we're past the point of eating an elephant one bite at a time, you and me. You know,
I just want to get on the board. I just want to pick something correctly.
And those, by the way, get your upset picks in right now. 71307 on the madworldattractions.com text line. Text us. Have the first word of your text be fan. So your text will read fan. Leprechaun of Lyman. Your game. And then the point spread. And then hit enter. Your name, your game, and your point spread. Just make sure that fan is the first word of your text. We cannot wait to get your upset picks. We're going to share them all on the air. We're going to do that next. Plus, my friends, we are going to paint a picture of what it might just be like to work for a bad boss. Do any of you guys have that scenario? That's next, right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate.
Guys, thanks for being on the show with us again today. A couple of you hit the eject button to go find the Braves game early on. We're going to do the same. I think it's on TBS, and I even saw that it was on HBO Max. Yeah, they're spreading this content around to so many networks. It's getting so frustrating and harder to find content. We appreciate you guys being on the show. Dan B, you stuck with us the majority of the show. Spur Daddy, Madcraft, all of you, thank you for being here. We'll do it again tomorrow.